Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to our final webinar of this series, which is on the X Factor for Success. So, my name is Karishma, and today again I'm going to be the host for this webinar. So, viewers, kindly drop your name and your country name you have joined from in the chat box. Also, I hope you all are doing great. Okay, so before we dive in, I would like to quickly recap our previous two webinars. So on day one, we explored research and problem identification. And on day two, we learned about innovating for impact. So now today we are going to focus on what sets successful projects apart. So now let me give you a short overview of what we will be covering today. We will be learning key judging criteria and how to align with them. Also, unique elements that makes a project shine and insight of past FRC winners and their success stories. So to present this, I would like to welcome our presenters, Arish Agarwal, Aditi Goyal, and Sparsh Ranjan of grade 11 from Jayashree Parival International School RFL Academy. So student, kindly start with your presentation and share your research with us.
Thank you so much for that introduction. As you said, my name is Parsh Ranjan,
I am Arish Agarwal.
And I'm Aditi.
and we're from JPIS and being coached by the RFL Academy as part of Team Kaizen for FRC. We'll be going to the Turkey regionals in March, and we're the first team from JPIS, from Rajasthan, and from North India. FRC is the largest robotics competition in the world, and it teaches you outreach, innovation, entrepreneurship, everything that's required for Codeavour 6.0 track 1 this year. And today we've come to collaborate with Codeavour and present our third and final webinar of the series, where we'll be discussing the X factors that set winning projects apart. And you can think of this as a culmination of the first two webinars, where we discussed identifying the problem statements, then the solutions, and now we're back to the presentation. Arish, is the screen visible?
Okay, so yes, Sparsh, I think there is some lag in your presentation. Try to present the screen one more time.
Okay, yeah, now it's visible. All right. Yeah. So again, just a brief overview of what this webinar will be about. The X factor. Now, what does it mean to have an X factor? An X factor is something that would set your project apart from all the others. It needs to be the winning factor in your presentation, and this can be either based on your solution, and most of the time it's about a presentation element where you either convey your solution very well or convey your problem very well and your connection to it. It needs to be something that resonates with the judges. And that's why to base your X factor in your presentation, you need to have a good understanding of the judging criteria, what has set past winning projects apart. And as we stated in our last webinar, past projects are kind of like your Bible for Codeavour because they're like a guiding line for how you're supposed to set up your project. Now I'll hand it over to Aditi to discuss last year's judging criteria.
Um, so actually, it's Arish, not Aditi. So last year's success. So let's discuss about the last year's judging criteria. So the first thing is problem analysis and understanding. So you guys always need to have a deeper understanding of your project, and you need to understand how exactly how much deep is your how much there's depth in your project, and how much depth is there in the problem. You need to be able to understand, not just like this is an overview, like there is no poverty in India, like there is no there's a water scarcity in these places. You need to be able to have some stats. You need to be able to understand what the people are facing. You need to be able to go in such depth that when they ask you the problem that you're giving, that you're able to give them a depth analysis, showing that how much research you have given to this, and showing how much analysis you have done on on this current problem and why you have chosen it. Second is theme selection and purpose. The theme you're going to select, the 5 themes that in track 1 have been provided, you have to choose them very carefully. You can't just go for any choice and thinking like I like this one. Again, this goes on the last point. As I mentioned, you need to research about everything. You need to you should analyze, okay, if I'm going to select this theme, what all ideas do I have, what all projects I can do in this theme, and you need to be able to have a purpose with this, because I think for all judges, they always consider one thing: why have you chosen this? Why are you doing this? You need to show your purpose of this project. You need to show why you're doing it. Third is the technical implementation. I'm pretty sure that every one of you already are doing this with PictoBlocks and all of this, but you need to show that the project is technical as well. Because in Codeavour, it's all about that how much global impact you can create with the technology you have been provided. So that doesn't mean that you're gonna start creating drones and all. You should also think about the feasibility as well. But a technical implementation is always necessary in your project to show how much modern technology you have used to make your solution advance and make your project advance to create a wider impact. Fourth is the solution design and creativity. Many people might think this is a minor details, and then like we should not care about this, we'll do this in the end. But solution design and creativity can produce a lot of impact when you present to the judges, especially because if your project is just looking like a messed up buyers and they're just showing like, okay, I have just done this much, no one is going to want to see that. No judges want to see a messy project and they're just saying, okay, like even though your solution might be one of the most innovative solutions ever, but if it's not designed and thought about it carefully, then they're not going to like it. And the second point on this is creativity. You need to be able to show how creative you are. If you just are going to go with the same boring design like already that have been implemented on the internet, people might not think like that's not innovative enough, and you might not get as many credits as you can, even if your solution is that innovative or that transformative. Fifth point, which I would say, is presentation and communication. I think this is one of the most important and essential criterias out of all which in the last years, because the way you're able to express your narrative story is going to be very essential. You need to be able to affect in a such confidence and in such truth of the project you have, and that only comes through when you have research enough, and then that comes through when you have a purpose of this project. When you believe that your solution is actually bringing a change in this world, then only that you will be able to communicate and present your project properly. So let's suppose I'm just presenting a project of mine and saying like, I think that this will do this, and this is going to do, and this is going to solve world hunger, because I'm going to create an AI chatbot. I'm going to create an AI that's going to help an affording company, that. But that's not a very presentable way of how you're going to show it to the judges. You need to be able to show like my AI based on this networks, or on these working on NLP, working on this machine learning model, is bringing a change through this much, and this is the amount of impact we have tried, and also the feedback you guys have received. You need to talk about every single detail of every step you have covered, and show them to and show them judges. Even if it's a failure, you should always show it to judges like, we occurred at this problem and this is what we thought as a new and a better solution. And to be able to communicate properly, all you need to have is confidence and belief in your project. With these two things, you can be able to communicate with anyone on your project at any time. And last is a banner presentation. In other words, I would also call this an elevator statement. This is something that is going to sum up your whole project in like one line. This is something that when someone sees your project and they say like, okay, so I think this is what their project is based on. So banner presentation doesn't need to be fully crowded with photos or fully crowded with some multiple designs. It needs to be simple, effective, and even some you can even have some fun factors in it as well, because banner presentation is also a way we can show your creativity to the judges as well. They want to see how expressive the student is being in their project. They want to see how they're telling their project in such a creative and fun way, but also sums up their whole project at one point. So now moving on to the X factor. I think this is the whole presentation that's based on, and that's based on simple 3 points from where you can turn your project with the X factor that can lead it to one of the winning projects. First point, innovation beyond the norm. You need to think about something that's different. You need to think about something that's never been done. But that doesn't mean you need to think about a solution that hasn't been presented. You can always choose a previous solution that has already been implemented and find it how you can take it beyond a set line, beyond the limit. If you're able to take that project from somewhere, from being a normal gas leakage detector, and taking that to rural homes and creating, I would say, let's suppose, an air purifier with the gas leakage detector, that can change a lot of things in rural homes. When you're able to purify when you're able to purify the air, and when the gas is being leaked, that can also bring a small change. Or whether if you're just trying to do some cyber security, let's suppose you're trying to bring some change in cyber security, taking, let's suppose we choose an NLP that can detect an AI modulated voice in voice calls, that can bring a huge innovation, because that's something that's really been done. So innovation beyond the norm is has to be your first step before anything. This has to be when you have decided your problem statement, and now you're moving on to your solution. So how is a solution becoming an innovative thing, and how is it making such a huge impact in the field that even the judge is surprised, wow, this is your solution, this is something that we could have not thought before. Second is your social impact. Who are you affecting? How are you affecting them? Is the problem that big? Find a demographic area, find a geographic and demographic area. Be able to locate and be able to think, where am I bringing this social impact? If you're doing an agriculture project, then you need to think, if I'm choosing these farmers, then what, are these farmers facing financial issues? Are they facing crop issues? Are they facing educational issues? What kind of issues are they facing, and what's the biggest issue? So I think we have also said that one of the easiest ways to do this is also check out the industry trends as well, because you can notice by that about why is this a social impact, why is this being create a bigger and bigger problem in agriculture. People would just think about crop failures or nothing, but education is such a big issue, especially to farmers. And then how about a social impact for students as well? What if you're creating a platform for students to come on, and then they're trying to connect and collaborate with each other somewhere more less specified than LinkedIn, improving on a solution that's already been set up and still creating a major impact? That's something that an X factor is especially is. So your social impact, you should always be able to question. You should always be able to question yourself: how many people I am affecting, who am I affecting, and is this effect going to actually bring some change? And that change you can know by getting feedbacks. This, I think, we reviewed in webinar 2 and webinar 1 as well. Feedback is always important. You work on your feedback, that's how you grow, that's how you make your impact all bigger. And because Codeavour is all about creating a global scale project and making an impact in global scale, that's why your social impact is always necessary and is always increasing your chances of becoming a bigger X factor. And the last point and the third point is your exceptional presentation skills. This, I think I even mentioned the last slide that this was a main presentations. This was a main criteria for judges even in the last year Codeavour competition, Codeavour 5.0. You have to be able to present yourself in the most confident and in the most truthful manner possible. You need to show the judges, yes, this is my project, this is how I have innovated beyond the norm, and this is the global and this is the social global impact I have created with this project. This is what I plan to do. This is what I have done till now. You should be able to communicate all of these details in a very confident manner. It doesn't matter if you are thinking that maybe they will be thinking like, if I have done this, maybe you're thinking of the worst case possible scenario that might be running on your head. But when you're presenting to them, there should be only one thing in your mind: how can I communicate my project to the judges in the most effective way possible? You need to be able to be confident. You need to know what the stats are. That's why research is always important. Using Google Scholar, UNSCG reports, they always provide you more accountability and credibility. You don't always have to speak like technological words. Let's suppose you're presenting a medical AI chatbot. You don't need to think about things like retination or Archimedes disease, or even let's say Franklin's disease. You don't need all these techie words. You can, if you're able to just show how your innovation is and how your social impact is. They just want to know what your solution is. They don't care if you know all of these words in the field. That doesn't bring anything. Sure, they might think, okay, yeah, he can use some high tech words in his presentation, but that doesn't give you an extra edge over the exceptional in your exceptional presentation skills. To be able to know enough about your project and your innovation, that's enough to bring your exceptional presentation skills. So I think that's all. These are the most three essential criteria in an X factor. So moving on, I think Aditi is going to take over now.
So now we're going to talk about the past year winners. Again, I think we talked about this in our first webinar as well as the second one. Past winners are the Bible to Codeavour, as Parsh said, and these are very important. So firstly, we'll talk about Project Smart Load Carrier, in which the project is aimed to reduce physical strain on workers and improve efficiency in load carrying tasks. So the solution was designed with the real world usability in mind. So as Arish said, that Codeavour really wants you to make an impact, and a looking at the practical application of the solution is really important. So the team identified a specific problem. Again, we talked about this in our webinar one. Your problem needs to be very specific, and your research for this is very important. Next project is Planticon. So this was an AI-based solution for sustainable gardening to promote food security. This project was aimed to make gardening more accessible and efficient, especially in urban or resource limited environments. Now, mostly this was a exceptional project because people mostly relate farming and gardening to rural areas, but it is very important for the urban area as well. And this was an X factor in their project because no one really thought about it that way. So now the common themes, both of these projects focused on solving real world problems, and they had an X factor to their solution. And this increases the chances of project success and adoption. Both projects leverage technology. So now in our technologically advanced age, we really need to use technology as an advantage to us, as judges will really like that in when the world is really developing and moving towards more advanced technology. You using technology will provide a very better edge to your project. Now, it addressed significant issues and it was highly relevant and impactful. Again, Codeavour really wants you to make an impactful problem and solution because it is really important for them, because their themes are also revolving around sustainability and all of that. So yeah, your impact is really important. So now I'll move on to insights. So in-depth research. Now, in-depth research is really important, as we talked about in our first webinar. Research is really important. It is the foundation to any successful project. It helps you understand the problems from multiple angles, identify gaps, and gather information to make your decision. So now, for example, you are making a project and you did not really research on it well. When you presented it, it turns out that the project already exists and there's nothing new to it. So your research plays a really important role on how you can find out the existing solutions to your problem that exist and develop on it. We talked about this in our webinar 1 as well as webinar 2. There are multiple ways you can research. You can conduct interviews or surveys with your users. Like if you're working on a farming project, you can talk to the farmers what they need, and what they want in your solution and what will help them. You can analyze existing data and read case studies or past solutions that were implemented before. And your industry reports really come in handy for you. Now, prototyping and feedback. We talked about this in our webinar too as well, because it is really important. Prototyping allows you to turn your ideas into tangible models, and testing it and working on it helps it refine it, which is really important. I think that's a given. Now, taking feedback. Again, if you're working on a farming solution, if you make a project and present it to a farmer in your area, you can actually ask them that, how can you develop this? What do you need? And that can really make your project personalized and better in real life, which will give you an edge. Now, team collaboration. If you're working in a team, then you are sure to get diverse perspectives and multiple opinions. What is really important, and we talked about this in our last webinar as well, that collaboration and is really important when you're working in a group. You won't move forward without all of your team members on the same page. Again, I want you to see our webinar too for this, but I will still talk about this here. You can, if for strategies for effective collaboration, you can clearly assign roles and responsibilities for every team member, so it does not create confusion and two of the team members don't end up working on the same thing, which will reduce your efficiency and all. Now, please make your communication well. So I would recommend for you to assign roles and do it in the week, and then take a meeting on Saturday or Sunday to tell them about your progress and all. Now, mentorship and guidance. Again, we talked about this in our last webinar as well, that mentorship really helps in refining your project, and they bring out experience, wisdom, and an outside perspective that will help your project, and it will help you avoid common pitfalls. Mentors are really experienced, so if you can get someone who can guide you through your project in Codeavour, it will be really useful. They have expertise in the field and have tackled similar challenges for a long period of time before they have come here. So yeah, I think that is it. I will hand it over to Sparsh now.
All right, thank you, Aditi. So now that the webinar has almost come to a close, we'll just have a quick summary of everything that we've discussed so far about having the X factor to achieve success. So first is show, don't tell. I think this is something that you may have heard otherwise also. But besides just justifying your problem, what's very important is to show its relevance to the world, to show the relevance of your solution to the world, to show how it's learned from other people's solutions. And that can be demonstrated either by testing results, by maybe showing a live demonstration of your product, which is often very good and is prominent in many past winners. And lastly, showing the impact that it has had on people or the environment or whoever your target audience may be. So showing that impact is extremely important. And Codeavour's video format is also pretty flexible with this, and you can really show your progress, your impact, and why your solution is important and should deserve the win. Often these demonstrations of impact can themselves be the X factor that help you win. So now moving on to the X factor. Again, this can be pretty much anything. It's kind of difficult to like say it in one sentence what your X factor should be. But I would say that as Arish and Aditi have discussed so far, it can be your presentation style, it can be the storytelling that you've done, it can be the local connects, it can be the people that you feature in your video, a lot of things. Basically, the way that your solution is framed in context of your problem, that is how you can build out your X factor. Now, as I said, storytelling can be very important. And I think in most entrepreneurship pitches, even outside Codeavour, it's something that really drives the point home and brings successful startups. So, a strong narrative is extremely important. So, the narrative can be maybe you have an elderly grandparent, which is very common in past projects. And based on that, you notice that she has some accessibility problems, so you built an app to allow her to use her smartphone better. So that can be one example of a narrative, taking a local connect and connecting to a global connect. We can't stress how important that is because that really brings in a personal relevance that judges can attach to. And if you take something that people can very easily empathize with, that can also build out your narrative very well. So elderly grandparents, for example, everybody has grandparents. And if you've like had any interactions with them, you can see that they are very technologically divided. That's why that story in particular is such a strong narrative. Now, next is aligning with the criteria. So, as much as you have creative freedom within your project, there is also an element that you need to have a level of technical complexity in your project. It should be sophisticated, it should have cutting edge technology, and it should have a scalable architecture. So, these are some of the basic parts in the judging criteria that Arish discussed, and you need to make it so that it fits Codeavour's vision, which is to build a world where we have sustainable innovations that solve the five themes that have been given out by Codeavour in this season. And aligning with that judging criteria is probably the first step you need to do. The creativity, and it's not like this creativity is hindered by the judging criteria. You can think of it as augmenting it as well as bringing like a real world element, because if you have only creativity, then your solution won't be structured. And in a real world scenario like a Codeavour competition or an entrepreneurial pitch or a pitch to a nonprofit, these metrics are extremely important, and that's why aligning with the judging criteria is not only helpful to win the competition, but also helpful in your general life, because it's like a guiding tool to how to get funding or get further progress on your project. Now, next is the balance strategies. So you need to have a good balance between the technical aspects of your product as well as the presentation in your product. If you have too much on one side, it won't really be effective, because with a strong presentation, if your project is not innovative, it doesn't have novelties, then clearly it's not a good solution and you're just trying to overwrite what you've done. And it's not good to oversell what you've done. You should just be very honest with your solution and explain it exactly how it is. And similarly, even if your project is extremely complex, even if it solves the best of the best problems, as Arish said, if it doesn't have a good presentation to it, it won't have like connect with the audience, which is the judges. The judges need to be able to understand your vision. You may have a very good idea of it, but if it's not communicated well, then it won't work. That's why management and technology and communication and innovation are so important in building out your entrepreneurial solutions. And this is like very common across programs around the world, where they teach you both the technology aspect and how to bring it across to a foreign audience. And lastly is taking inspiration, something that we've been emphasizing from the very beginning of the series, which is to take inspiration from everything around you. And this is how your ideas come up, your experiences, the things you notice around you, whether it be even an internet search or a gloss through Codeavour success stories blog. All these things can help you build ideas. Any deficiencies you see in your life, you can turn any of those to startup solutions or innovations. And that is what Codeavour is all about: make building out your own life, building out the life of others, so that it's better for them. It's you get a greater quality of life, and for the future generations, you do not compromise their success. And that's why taking inspiration is so important, whether it be from industry experts, past winners, or even your relatives. All of these channels are extremely good for taking inspiration. And in your actual pitch, you should talk about these inspiration point of views. You should talk about how you looked at perhaps past projects and were inspired by the technical expertise in them, or you were inspired by maybe even like a vegetable seller and noticed their problems and accordingly built out a solution. So taking inspiration can also be a very good link to build out a narrative. And that is a Codeavour summed up for this season, which is just to take inspiration from the problems around you, build out your solution, align it with the criteria, and just have an X factor that sets you apart from all the other projects. All right, so that would be the end of our three-part series on the problem identification, the innovation, and the X factor. Once again, we're extremely thankful to Codeavour for letting us come and present and discuss our experiences and how we've identified problem statements, built out our innovations, and brought impact through FRC. And there is also a feedback form that is attached here as a QR code. And once again, thank you everybody for joining. We hope that you watch previous webinars as well as this one and are able to succeed at Codeavour 6.0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, presenters, for this wonderful research. I hope our viewers has found this webinar informative, engaging, and inspiring. Also, I'm going to share a feedback form in the chat box. So kindly fill that form so that you can get your participation certificates. Okay, so the feedback form is there in the chat. If there is any question now, we are open to Q&A session, and we will try to sort out your doubts. So if there is any doubt, kindly put the doubts in the chat. Also, there is one more thing. If right now you do not have any doubt, so there is one thing you can do, that at the end of this session, while you are going to fill the feedback form, in your feedback form, you can add the question, and then our presenters will surely try to address them. Okay, as for now, I cannot see any question in the chat. So let's sum up this session. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much again for joining with us for this webinar series. And we will wish you the best in your future endeavors. And have a great day, everyone.